Okay. So this is our presentation on the contributions of Gandhi and Nehru to Indian independence. We'll start with Gandhi. So Gandhi's contribution to India's independence was the first one would be nonviolent protest. Early into Gandhi's career as an activist and freedom fighter, he adopted a philosophy of nonviolence called satyagraha. Methods of protest were carried out by hunger strikes, fasting, prayer, civil disobedience, peaceful picketing, and peaceful demonstrations. These tactics were quite successful as it had resulted in a few of the Indians' major grievances being heard. The second thing would be British boycott. This was actually a major thing for them, and it was one of the bigger stepping stones that led to independence. So Gandhi encouraged Indians to boycott British goods and buy Indian goods instead. This helped to revitalize local economies in India, and it also hit home at the British by undermining their economy in the country. Gandhi made it even made it a public display as he threw British-made clothes into a bonfire. The British boycott eventually rolled into the non-cooperation movement as Indians began to opt for using only Indian-made products, services, and institutions. The third point would be Gandhi's nonviolent protest. An example of one of these nonviolent protests was the Champaran movement of 1917. In the Champaran district of Bihar, farmers were being forced to make indigo on their best patch of land and sell it at a cheap price. The situation reached a tipping point when the weather conditions became a barrier to indigo production, as well as the farmers being forced to pay exorbitant taxes. Gandhi joined the cause and through civil disobedience, strikes, and demonstration was able to get the demands of the farmers met. The non-cooperation movement. The non-cooperation movement was an effort designed by Gandhi to sever ties with British influence. This saw Indians quitting government jobs, only purchasing Indian goods, relinquishing titles and honors given to them by British government for services in World War I, withdrawing their children from government-run or aided schools and colleges, and boycotting elections. Through this movement, Gandhi hoped to bring the British to their knees and have them grant India autonomy. Now, this movement was not as successful as it became a civil disobedience, and it resulted in people being shot and killed. So Gandhi had eventually called it off for a bit because he didn't want people dying, because that wasn't how he wanted things to go. Gandhi and the INC. The INC is the India's National Congress. Mahatma Gandhi was elected as the president of the Indian National Congress in 1921. He immediately introduced a number of reforms within the party's ranks. The first responsibility that Gandhi undertook as the president of the Indian National Congress was to increase the reach of the party among the masses who reside in the remote corners in order to eradicate its elitist status. Gandhi famously stated that rural India was the very backbone of the country, both in economic and logistic terms. Therefore, no movement can truly be successful unless wholeheartedly supported by the inhabitant of Indian villages. The first step that he took was to considerably reduce the membership fee of the party. Then he restructured the entire party's hierarchy and opened new party branches at various provinces and princely states of India. Soon, Congress took a national dimension with membership multiplied manifold. And I think this one was very important as it was kind of the last step for Gandhi, as it kind of made India ungovernable for the British. So eventually it became a problem and they had to pull out and give India full autonomy. Quit India. The Quit India movement was launched by Mahatma Gandhi on August 8, 1942 at the Bombay session of All India Congress Committee. Also known as the Bharat Chado Andolan, this movement was a mass civil disobedience that took place in the country. During the launch of the movement, the father of the nation delivered a speech amid a do-or-die situation. He demanded that the British must leave India immediately or face dire consequences. As a part of this movement, a call for mass agitation was followed by violence that took over the country, after which Indian National Congress leaders were arrested. And now I'll hand over to Gabriel.
Okay, now we're going to go into contributions that Nehru made. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. So after the Lahore session of 1929, Nehru emerged as the leader of the country's intellectuals and youth. Gandhi had shortly elevated him to the presidency of the Congress Party over the heads of some of his seniors, hoping that Nehru would draw India's youth, who at the time were gravitating towards extreme leftist causes, into the mainstream of the Congress movement. Gandhi also correctly calculated that with added responsibility, Nehru himself would be inclined to keep it to the middle way. So Nehru moved to the inner councils of the Congress Party and became closer to Gandhi, although Gandhi did not officially designate Nehru to his political heir until 1942. The Indian populace, as early as the mid-1930s, saw in Nehru as a natural successor to Gandhi. Okay, next slide. Upon learning of esteemed theosophist Annie Besant's arrest in 1917, Nehru was moved to join the All India Home Rule League, an organization devoted to obtaining self-government within the British Empire. In 1919, British troops opened fire on thousands of unarmed civilians who had been protesting recent passed legislation that permitted the detainment of suspected political foes without trial. The massacre of Amritsar, in which 379 Indians were killed and more than 1,000 others were wounded, outraged Nehru and further solidified his resolve to win India's independence. Okay, next slide. Nehru went to Belgium in 1927 to represent India through the Indian National Congress in a meeting called Coordinate and Plan a Common Struggle Against Imperialism. There he talked about India and India's condition under the British government. The result of his work was very much visible at the time. India had received the sympathy of many countries, and this put a moral pressure on the British. With a leader like Nehru, India is now able to show its condition on an international forum. Okay, next slide. Nehru was elected as president of Congress in 1930. It was the same year when Gandhi initiated the famous Dandi March. At the time, Nehru was also arrested because of the violation of the SALT law. In 1936, again, Nehru got elected as president of the Congress because of his ideology. Under his leadership in 1937, Indian National Congress contested in the 1937 elections and won 8 provinces in total and lost just 2 to other parties. Leadership of Nehru was the key player in his massive win. Okay, I would also like to add that Nehru was imprisoned for the first time for his activities against the British government, and over the course of the next 2.5 decades, spent a total of 9 years in jail. All right, next slide. Nehru went to jail many times during India's freedom struggle. He spent around 9 years in jail during different spans of his stay in jail. During these years, he couldn't take care of his daughter. He belonged to a wealthy family, but because of the freedom struggle in India, his family lost a huge amount of wealth. The Nehru family also donated their bungalow in New Delhi to the Congress Party so that the party would have a formal headquarters. And now we have the video.
Is that a video? We're not hearing.
Okay, hold on, sir. Are you hearing now, sir?
I am not hearing. Anyone
Oh,
else?
because I just paused it. I wanted to know if you were hearing before.
No.
Oh, I don't know why that's happening. Okay, seeing as that video was just really sound, so you didn't really need to hear anything because it was all just music. But seeing that sound isn't really working for me right now, I had a video as well, but I'll just leave the link to it in the slides. So that will be the end of our presentation today.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Louis, your group.
Yes, sir. Hold on, let me. All right, sir.
Who else did the presentation? So we have Marshall, and then we have Louis. Louis, you work with Eccleston,
No, sir, Williams.
Williams, and Eccleston also did it.
Yes, sir, Daniel and I.
Eccleston and Collins. So these are the only three groups.
No, sir. Savannah, Kelly, and Alyssa also did the presentation.
Savannah,
Alia and Alyssa.
but wait, Marshall, you did the presentation by yourself, right?
No, sir, I did it with Gabriel.
Okay, so Marshall did it with Gabriel. Good. Then Louis and Williams going to present. Then after that, Eccleston and Collins. Then Savannah and who?
Alyssa and Kalia.
So 3 persons in that group.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then after that, so the only group that didn't do the work is Shanae. Correct.
Yes, sir.
All right, good.
So we can do it tomorrow, please.
Well, tomorrow we're not going to meet. Go ahead for me. Do the work though and upload it to the Google Classroom. Go ahead for me. Go ahead for me, Louis and Williams.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So let's get straight into our presentation. So first, let's look at who is Gandhi and his role in Indian independence. So Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and political ethicist who employed nonviolent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule and was to inspire movements for independence and civil rights across the world. So the role played by Gandhi is the role he played in the Indian International Congress, his nonviolent methods, Gandhi's institutional and economic boycotts, the Gandhi Quit India movement, the Gandhi policy of non-cooperation, and the Salt March. So the role played by Gandhi in the Indian National Congress. So the Indian National Congress was only for the elite of society who were educated and who studied overseas. It was also dominated by Hindus, which excluded the Muslims. The INC had also had a high membership fee, which many Indians could not afford to pay. And it was Gandhi who lowered the membership fee and also transformed the INC so every Indian could join, no matter their class or their religion. So his nonviolent methods, so he practiced nonviolent methods of resistance when it came to fighting against the British. So he had peaceful demonstrations and protests, as well as fasting and hunger strikes. Passive resistance and civil disobedience were also practiced. Peaceful picketing, prayer, and nonviolent protests and fasting gained international attention and support for the movement. So his international and economic boycotts. So it was a boycott of British manufacture and institutions such as schools, courts, parliament. And he urged Indians to use local products rather than buy British manufactured clothes. He began to use a portable spinning wheel to produce. Sorry, give me a second.
He began to use a portable spinning wheel to produce his own cloth. The spinning wheel soon became a symbol of Indian independence and self-reliance. So his Quit India movement. So demanding the immediate withdrawal of British from India. As Great Britain found itself engulfed in World War II in 1942, Gandhi launched the Quit India movement that called for the immediate British withdrawal from the country. In August 1942, the British arrested Gandhi, his wife, and other leaders of the Indian National Congress and detained them in the Aga Khan Palace in present-day Pune. So his policy of non-cooperation. So he encouraged many Indians to return British honors, medals. Oh, you guys can't hear me? Can you hear me?
you. I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I have construction going on where I live right now. So I can hear it in the background. I just hope it's not too loud. Okay, Sabana says she's gonna rejoin. Okay. So Gandhi became a leading figure in the Indian Home Rule movement, calling for mass boycotts. He urged government officials to stop working for the crown, students to stop attending government schools, soldiers to leave their posts, and citizens to stop paying taxes and purchasing British goods. No longer able to pledge his alliance to the British government, he even returned the medals he earned for his military service in South Africa and opposed Britain's mandatory military draft of Indians to serve in World War I. So the Salt March. So Gandhi returned to active politics in 1930 to protest Britain's Salt Acts, which not only prohibited Indians from collecting or selling salt, a dietary staple, but imposed a heavy tax that hit the country's poorest particularly hard. Gandhi planned a new satyagraha campaign, the Salt March, that entailed a 390-kilometer 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea, where he would collect salt in symbolic defiance of the government monopoly. Wearing a homespun white shawl and sandals and carrying a walking stick, Gandhi set out from his religious retreat in Sabarmati on March 12, 1930, with a few dozen followers. By the time he arrived 24 days later in the coastal town of Ghandi, the ranks of the marchers swelled, and Gandhi broke the law by making salt from evaporated seawater. So you also have the Khilafat movement. So Gandhi's influence on the Muslim population was remarkable. This was evident in his involvement in the Khilafat movement. After the First World War, the Muslims feared for the safety of their caliph or religious leader, and a worldwide protest was being organized to fight against the collapsing status of the caliph. Gandhi became a prominent spokesperson of the All India Muslim Conference and returned the medals he had received from the empire during his Indian Ambulance Corps days in South Africa. His role in the Khilafat made him a national leader in no time. I have this was like a quote thing, but it was said by the British viceroy at the time, Lord Irwin, and it says, "My ambition is no less than to convert the British people through non-violence and thus make them see the wrong they have done to India." And he wrote this days before the Salt March. So I'm going to hand over to Dina May now, who is going to do Nehru.
Okay, guys. So who is Jawaharlal Nehru? Nehru was an Indian anti-colonial nationalist, secular humanist, social democrat, and author who was a central figure in India during the middle third of the 20th century. Nehru was a principal leader of the Indian independence movement in the 1930s and 1940s. Next slide, Michael. In 1919, Nehru joined the Indian National Congress, which was fighting for greater autonomy from the British. He was heavily influenced by the organization's leader, Mohandas Gandhi. During the 1920s and 1930s, Nehru was repeatedly imprisoned by the British for civil disobedience. After the Lahore session of 1929, Nehru emerged as the leader of the country's intellectuals and youth. Gandhi had truly elevated him to the presidency of the Congress Party over the heads of some of his seniors, hoping that Nehru would draw India's youth, who at that time were gravitating towards extreme leftist causes, into the mainstream of the Congress movement. Gandhi also correctly calculated that with added responsibility, give me a second. That with added responsibility, Nehru himself would be inclined to keep the middle way. So the roles of Nehru. So Nehru and the non-cooperation movement. The first big involvement of Nehru came at the onset of the non-cooperation movement in 1920. Nehru joined in wholeheartedly in this satyagraha, which is a holding firmly to the truth and is a form of civil resistance based movement that stormed India. In the rift formed within Congress following the sudden closure of the non-cooperation movement, they remained loyal to Gandhi's camp and denied to join the Swaraj Party formed by Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das. That's his dad. He refused to join the party of his dad and stuck by Gandhi. After his release from jail, Nehru's fame as a dynamic Congress leader was well established. He soon became the president of the Allahabad Congress Committee in 1923. However, towards the end of the decade, Nehru grew increasingly impatient with the pacifist nature of the senior congressman. Nehru was intent on complete freedom and believed in giving an ultimatum to the British government regarding their dominion status. So senior leaders were bent on a slower and more patient approach. The Calcutta Congress of 1928 brought the rift into the open. Nehru openly decried the Nehru Commission formed by Motilal Nehru, and it needed the intervention of Mahatma Gandhi to persuade Nehru to abandon his very stance of more direct action. Um, you can, yeah. Nehru and the civil disobedience movement. The Lahore Congress of 1929 was monumental in the political career of Nehru as well as the history of India's freedom struggle. Nehru was elected the president of Congress for the first time at a young age of 14. He used the platform of the Lahore Conference to declare the goal of complete freedom, or Purna Swaraj, Purna meaning complete, Swar meaning self, and Raj meaning rule. The civil disobedience movement was formally launched after the Lahore Congress, and Nehru wholeheartedly plunged himself in the nonviolent protests and picketing that took the nation by storm. Nehru was arrested again in 1930, beginning the second and the longest phase of his prison stays. On his release, he formed the Socialist Party within Congress and insisted on more stern and immediate measures to realize the goal of India's freedom. Nehru was pivotal in negotiating India's independence. By the end of World War II, Nehru was recognized as Gandhi's successor. He played a central role in the negotiations over Indian independence. He opposed the Muslim League's insistence on the division of India on the basis of religion, which I think we spoke about this in class before, which is why we have Pakistan and India. Pakistan, yeah. Louis Mountbatten, the last British viceroy, advocated the division as the fastest and most workable solution, and reluctantly agreed when no alternative path to independence seemed possible. On August 15, 1947, Nehru became the first Prime Minister of independent India. He held the post until his death in 1964. He implemented modern socialist economic reforms and committed India to a policy of industrialization. This is where he and Gandhi differed. Gandhi was fighting for the independence to an India that he remembered, for an India that he remembered, like before the British came, but um, Nehru wanted an independent India in a more modern era. He wanted India to move forward. Two great works of Nehru are Discovery of India, written during his incarceration in 1942 to 1945, and The Glimpse of World History, which is a collection of 196 letters to his daughter, Indira, his daughter who became prime minister after he died, where he tells her a great deal about world history. That's it. You guys have any questions?
All right. Thank you very much. Very good presentation. Eccleston and Collins, over to you.
Okay, so um, so yeah, can y'all see my screen? Anybody see my screen?
Yeah, we're seeing it.
We
Okay.
can see.
So Daniel, you're gonna start us off? Oh, I'll just do this first and then Daniel will start off with the role of Gandhi. Okay, so who were Gandhi and Nehru? Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi was the leader of India's non-violent independence movement against British rule in South Africa. He was an advocate. Sorry about it. He was an advocate for the civil rights of Indians. He was born in Porbandar, India, and Gandhi. He studied law and organized protests and petitions against the British. However, he was killed by a fanatic Afghan in 1948. On the other hand, Nehru, born Jawahar, I can't really pronounce that. Yeah, Jawaharlal. He was born to a lawyer. His family was very wealthy, as I think um, the group before Michael had mentioned. That he must do. His family was very wealthy, so he was able to get his education in India at Harrow School and then Trinity College, Cambridge, and then he studied law at the Inner Temple in London. He returned to India in actually 1912, that's a mistake, and practiced law for years before he joined the Indian National Congress, where he met Gandhi in 1919. So now Daniel's going to do the contributions of Gandhi.
All right, so the first contribution of Gandhi is the Salt March, the Gandhi movement, the Dandi movement, sorry. Gandhi's Salt March is known to be a vital contribution in the freedom struggle. At the Calcutta Congress of 1928, Gandhi declared that the British must grant India Dominion status or the country will erupt into a revolution for a complete independence. The British did not pay heed to this. As a result, on December 31st, 1928, the Indian flag was unfurled in Lahore, and the next January 26 was celebrated as Indian Independence Day. Then Gandhi started a Satyagraha campaign against the salt tax in March 1930. He marched 388 kilometers from Ahmedabad to Dandi in Gujarat to make salt. Thousands of people joined him and made it one of the biggest marches in Indian history. So, the Quit India movement. During the Second World War, Gandhi was determined to strike the British Empire with a blow that would secure their exit from India. Gandhi protested consistently and said that the Indians cannot be involved in a war that is in favor of democratic purposes when India itself is not a free country. This argument exposed the two-faced image of the colonizers, and within a half a decade, they were out of this country. The Civil Disobedience Movement, 1930. Mahatma Gandhi in March 1930 spoke to the nation in a newspaper article, Young India, and expressed his willingness to suspend the movement if his 11 demands get accepted by the government. But the government at the time was of Lord Irwin, and he did not respond back to him. As a result, Mahatma Gandhi initiated the movement with full strength.
Okay, so now I'm going to the contributions of Nehru. I focused mostly on not really so the goal towards independence, but how he contributed to independent India. So yes. Okay, so the first contribution of Nehru to independent India was he was the first prime minister until his death in 1964, and he contributed severely to the India's education system as he established higher learning institutions, and he also made education to all children free. To primary education to all children free. Next, he introduced he introduced parliamentary democracy to India. He advocated for democracy as he believed that was the only way for a diverse and divided country like India to be governed. He also believed that the national and state elections would allow the public to be more involved in the government. And he also encouraged opposing governments, even though India didn't really have like a solid opposing government. Like we know, Jamaica has PMP as our opposing government. India didn't really have much people opposing. As you can see, Nehru reigned for so long. They didn't really have a strong opposing government, but he did encourage people who were opposing the government to help supervise different government departments. So yeah. He also believed in industrialization, as Dina May mentioned in her presentation. He was really big on industrialization, and he did not think India could eliminate poverty without large-scale industrialization. He wanted India to become fully industrialized and saw cottage and small industries as a stepping stone to large-scale industrialization. He did not really believe in agriculture activity as he saw it as holding back the country, and he did not really consider peasantry as a social class. So as Dinami was saying, Nehru mostly wanted modernization of India. He saw that he believed that the only way India could really come out of the poverty state they were in was through industrialization and modernization. He also introduced independent foreign policy to India. He acquired high political visibility and played a creative international role. It mediated and contributed towards a better understanding between two superpowers, between India and the other European powers, and between the metropolitan countries and their ex-colonies. And it also, through his independent foreign policies, it brought India and other third world countries together, and it helped them to form common bonds and made them a moderately effective workforce. So yeah, this is the end of our presentation of Nehru, the contributions of Nehru and Gandhi.
All right, thank you very much, Savannah. McCoy.
This is our presentation on the contribution of Gandhi and Nehru. Freedom is never there at any price. It is the breath of life. What would a man not pay for a living? This is a quote from Gandhi.
Background on Indian independence. India, before Britain, was a self-sufficient country with an agrarian economy with multiple manufacturing activities such as cotton and silk textiles. Britain controlled India economically and politically in 1760, but by 1858, they became a British colony. British India was an unjust society for Indians. They were treated by whites as inferior and unimportant persons of society, discriminated against, experienced inequality. For example, they were not allowed top jobs and education. sexually abused, and overcharged for goods that were produced in their countries that were also exported by Britain. These conditions led to strikes, peaceful protests, and boycotts. And for these actions, persons were jailed and injured. During the time of World War One, Britain bargained with the Indians, saying if they went to war with them, they would grant them more control over their government. But of course, this was propaganda and no such thing happened. Groups like the Muslim League and National Congress worked for rights for the people, and the key figure, Mohandas Gandhi, led the people in peaceful protests that resulted in the death and injury of many. These protests reached all around the world, especially the Salt March of 1930, resulting in persons in other countries calling in for India's independence from Britain. After reviewing the socio-economic and political conditions of India. After World War One, Britain was drained and didn't have the manpower to restrain and control the uprisings in India. So on August 15, 1947, they granted India full independence, which is celebrated every year by India and Pakistan as separate free countries. Ours is not a drive for power, but purely a non-violent fight for India's independence. Gandhi.
Contribution of Gandhi. Gandhi was a lawyer who eventually became the leader of the Indian National Congress and played a major role in helping India gain independence. His contributions to Indian independence are as follows. Role in National Congress. Gandhi helped change the Congress from elitist to mass-based. One way he did this was by lowering the membership fees. This meant that instead of just the rich and privileged Indians participating, all Indians had a chance to be members and to advocate for independence. This increased membership and strengthened the party's influence. Nonviolence. Gandhi believed that the best way to gain independence was through peaceful protests, such as fasting and marches. He also encouraged non-retaliation, meaning that even if the British attacked them, they should stay peaceful. These protests gained international attention and support for the movement. An example of one of these peaceful protests was the Salt March, which ended with many supporters being killed by British troops. He also encouraged civil disobedience. Civil disobedience was the practice of peacefully opposing unjust laws. Institutional and economic boycott. Gandhi encouraged Indians to boycott British products and institutions. He encouraged individuals to support local products. People who worked in parliament or for British companies were to stop attending work. If people's kids went to a British farm school, they were encouraged to unenroll them. The Quit India campaign. The Quit India campaign demanded that Britain withdraw from India. World War I had a great effect on India, as Britain was struggling economically and could not afford to maintain India. There was also high unemployment. This raised the frustration felt by Indians. Before the start of the movement, many political leaders were arrested. People burned any symbols of British authority and disconnected telegraph and railway lines. The British Army shot many. This showed the determination of Indians for independence and led to Britain thinking seriously about giving India independence. Non-cooperation. Gandhi encouraged those who had received British honors, medals, and awards to return them. He also encouraged the boycott of elections, British courts by lawyers and judges, and boycott of British goods and schools.
Okay, so the contributions of Nehru. The nature and structure of democracy in India were shaped between 1947 and 1964 under its first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Although he was 20 years younger than Gandhi, Nehru became his close associate, confidant, and successor. Nehru came from a wealthy family and was educated in England at Harrow School and Cambridge University. In the fight for Indian independence, he was deeply influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. Sorry. Under his guidance, Nehru took an active part in the freedom struggle following the path of truth and nonviolence. Due, due to this, he went to jail many times. During one of his jail periods, he wrote the book The Discovery of India. He also wrote a series of letters to his daughter Indira of the freedom struggle. Of this freedom, no, Indira, telling her about the rich social and cultural heritage of India and the importance of the freedom struggle. He played a very active role in the struggle for independence with Congress. He was made the president of the Indian National Congress in 1929. Under him, Congress took the pledge of complete independence from British rule. This was known as Purna Swaraj Declaration and was officially acknowledged on the 26th of November 1930. This day is now celebrated as the Republic Day in India, when India officially adopted its constitution. So after the independence on India on the 15th of August 1947, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru became the first Prime Minister of India. Under his astute leadership and global vision, India achieved progress, prosperity, and respect on the international stage. He laid the foundation of democracy in India. He exemplified his belief in democracy at an international level by adopting the non aligned policy as part of India's foreign policy. This made India the pioneer of the non-aligned movement in the world. No, it's not switches. I'm just reading from my notes. Yeah. But this made the India the pioneer of non-aligned movement in the world. He believed in peaceful coexistence and therefore he signed the Panchsheel Agreement between India and China in 1961. He was a great supporter of disarmament and worked hard to create an international order of peace and brotherhood. Following the path defined by Buddha, Christ, and Nanak, he led India, the largest democracy in the world, to a position of respect in the world. Um, so, as the General Secretary of Congress during the 1920s, Nehru traveled wildly around India and saw at first hand the conditions of poverty and oppression under which millions of people lived. This gave a driving determination to improve the position of the peasants. He also traveled to Europe and the Soviet Union, where he came to believe that some form of socialism in the form of central planning would be the solution to India's social and economic problems. At the time, he valued liberal and humanist ideals and had a vision of India as a tolerant, secular democracy. He became the leader of the left wing of Congress and was regarded as by some of the more conservative members as a militant revolutionary. When India attained freedom in 1947, he became the prime minister of the country. His astute leadership and global vision. Wait, I already. Okay, sorry, I just repeated this statement already. Yeah, you can go to the next slide.
Hello?
Okay, that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much, students. Please go into the Google Classroom and upload the presentation. So you're going to upload it both to the stream and also there's a section for assignment that I've created. So upload it. Tomorrow is Tuesday, so on Tuesday, wait, I'm going to do the past papers. I think both you would have covered both Nehru and Gandhi perfectly. All right, let us see if I can share screen. All right, so ladies, we would have gone through the past papers for World War One, correct? All of it. I think so. I think we would have gone through the past papers for World War One. Correct, ladies?
Sir, we're not seeing your screen.
Okay. All right, good. So we would have gone through the past papers for World War One. Where is this? What happened here? But this don't make sense. So ladies, it's only the paper two. Oh man, there must be a mistake. All right, good, good. So one of the first time we had a question on India was 2005. All right, so let us look at the question on India, 2005. Somebody read the question. Question 9 for me, please. Where is they supposed to go and increase the screen?
Sir, just press the little magnifying, the little plus button at the bottom. At the bottom of the paper right there. At the plus button to make it bigger. Yeah, to zoom in. Yeah, we can see it now.
All right, good.
So it says, question 9, assess the role played by Mohandas Gandhi in the movement for Indian independence.
30 March. So you see, that's something that you would have looked at already. So that is from 2005, right? Remember that when you are doing a question like this, you need at least 5 to 6 points. 5 points is good, 6 points make it a little better. I believe at CXC is 5 points they look for this for the 30 marks. Yes, it is 5 points. Last year when I marked, They said it's 5 points they wanted. Right? So, but I always tell students to do 6 in the event that one of your point is not strong. If one of your point is not strong and you have another strong point, then they would have to give you the full marks. That's how they mark it. All right? So that is one question on Gandhi. This was 2005. Next one was 2010. Where it is. Read this question for me, please.
Discuss the extent to which the nationalist strategies used by Mahatma Gandhi to decolonize India were effective.
All right, so what you're doing here is to see how all the different strategies that Gandhi did, how that was effective. You argue if it was or if it was not. All right, remember your thesis statement, ladies. Then again, in 2016, it's not a lot of time that they give us Gandhi. Well, India, because I'm not seeing any document-based question on India. Look again, this is from This is from 2016. Somebody read that for me, please.
Assess the contribution of Mahatma Gandhi to the nationalist movement in India.
All right, so you see that most of the questions they ask about Gandhi. 2019. They ask again about Gandhi in 2019. No, not Gandhi. So let us read 2019.
Evaluate the role of Jawaharlal Nehru in the achievement of Indian independence.
So you need 5 points. So ladies, as you can see here, we have 4 times they would have asked essay questions from 2005 to 2019, 2021, I should say. And they ask about India's independence 4 times, and they usually focus on the role of, well, most time you see that the three out of the 4, they focus on Gandhi, and 1 time they focus on Nehru. Now, this year when the students got this question, it was hell, hop, and powder house. Because they would have been practicing on Gandhi. You really cannot prepare yourself for any exam, especially the external exam, by focusing only on one person. Right? You must ensure that you look at the contribution of Nehru, Gandhi, and the overall factors. So when I did the lesson with you on Friday, and we would have gone through about 5 or more factors that led to India's independence. Maybe next year they might ask you a question, what were the factors that led to India's independence, or explain the factors, or evaluate the factors that led to India's independence. And then in your evaluation, when you're evaluating, you're ensuring that you're discussing how successful it was. You cannot just state the issue alone. You must tell how successful it was. So we did, so those are the past papers on India. There's no past paper when it comes to, there's no past paper question in the form of a document. A document-based question on India, I've not seen any. All right. So the next thing, I believe we would have gone through the past papers on World War I already. I doubt we would have done World War II. I give you an essay on World War II. Let us check. So you did a document-based question on World War I. You did an essay on World War I, right? So you didn't do no essay at all on Russian Rev. All right, so I will go through some Russian Rev question and World War II. All right, let us go back. I'm going to start from 2001. So 2001, a document-based question. No, this is, yes, 2021 question. All right, so let us read one person. Eccleston, you want to help me out here? Let us read the document-based questions. I believe this covers World War II. Yes, World War II.
With reference to document 1, suggest 2 ways in which George Clemenceau's speech at the Paris Peace Conference may have set the stage for the outbreak of World War II. B, with reference to document 1, explain 3 ways in which Versailles was significant for the War of 1939. With reference to document 2, outline 3 ways in which the aggressive policies of Germany caused World War II. With reference to document 2, explain the reasons for the author's assessment that the whole policy of appeasement is in ruins.
All right, very good. And remember that George Clemenceau here, I think he was the French president. He was the prime minister or the president of France. All right, so how his speech led to, may have set the stage for the outbreak of World War II. Very important. Explain 3 ways in which Versailles, so that is the Treaty of Versailles, was significant. So you notice these are dealing with causes. Outline 3 ways in which the aggressive policy of Germany, and explain the reason why the author's assessment that the old policy of appeasement was ruined. Very nice questions. What about question 4? Read question 4 for me, Eccleston.
Discuss the view that the impact of World War I was mainly responsible for the outbreak of Bolshevik Revolution of 1917.
All right, so what is this asking you to do? What is this question? Discuss the view that the impact of World War I was mainly responsible for the outbreak of the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917.
It's a Russian Rev question.
It is a?
It's a Russian Rev question. They want to know how World War I kick-started the Bolshevik Revolution.
All right, so clearly this is a Russian rep question. And so it's asking you the impact of World War I, and it's discussed the view. You can agree and you can disagree. Let us look at which year after 20, I think it's 2019. Yes, we never have any paper 2020. So let us look at 2019. This one look a little familiar. Let us read the document-based questions for 2019. I think most students would have done well on this document-based question. Marshall, help me out here with the questions.
Could you zoom in? Okay. With reference to document 1, outline 3 actions of Kaiser William II that created the atmosphere for the outbreak of war in 1914. With reference to document 1, explain 3 reasons for Russia's interest in defending the Serbians. With reference to document 2, outline 2 ways in which the system of alliances caused whole populations to be propelled into the First World War. With reference to document 2, describe 3 effects of the war on major countries involved.
All right, so these are questions you should be familiar with. Nothing hard, and then we would have just looked at this in your individual presentations. Let us look at 2018. Question seems easy, don't? These are easy questions. They should allow me to set the exam. This is so easy. McCoy, let us look at these questions for 2000. This is what, 2018? Yes.
Explain 3 ways in which document 1 supports the view that Germany was chiefly responsible for the outbreak of World War I. With reference to document 2, suggest 2 reasons for Sir Edward Grey's view that it was in Britain's interest to support France in the event of a war. Elaborate on 2 concerns raised by Sir Edward Grey in document 3, which suggests that Britain's foreign policy was indecisive and contributed to the outbreak of World War I. With reference to documents 1, 2, and 3, explain 3 ways in which it could be argued that the outbreak of World War I was the collective responsibility of the major European powers.
All right, good. There's something I want to point out to you. I want you to do a table with World War I and World War II. And I want you to put all the prime ministers or presidents of each of the European countries. And also you want to put all the military generals. Because Sir Edward Grey, I believe he was a military general for, I think it was Britain during this period. And what Cape usually do is that they usually put in a name like Sir Edward Grey. You know the answer. With reference to document 2, suggests 2 reasons Sir Edward Grey's view that it was Britain's interest to support France. What the question is asking you, what were the reasons why Britain supported France? That's what the question asks you. But students will go into the exam and see Sir Edward Grey's view, and they say, Lord Jesus, sir never teach me about Sir Edward Grey. I don't know who said Sir Edward Grey is, and you get flustered and you know the answer why Britain support France. That's what the question is asking you. But they put this Sir Edward Grey in it to throw you off, right? And so you get when you're going to the exam, you get so flustered and you get confused. Just the same way for this here, they said, with reference to document 1, suggests 2 ways in which Joyce Clemenceau's speech at the Paris Peace Conference may have set the stage for the outbreak of World War II. What led to? What are the factors that led to World War II, right? In why the reason why France would have contributed, or what were the contribution of France to World War II. If you don't know that this person was the French president or prime minister, you're going to be in serious problem, right? Let us see if the document would have put it there. No, it wouldn't put it there. So basically, why France caused World War II? And then the other part of this one, I believe, focus on Germany. Is Germany? 3 factors: the Treaty of Versailles, the weaknesses of the treaty, and then aggressive policy, appeasement, focus on Britain's contribution, right? So I'm back to 18. Let us look at these 2 past paper questions for 18. The essays.
Critically assess the factors which contributed to the rise of Hitler from the nobody of Vienna into the leader of Greater Germany up to 1945. Assess the view that the armed
Go ahead.
assess
No,
the
yeah,
view
we're not doing that. No, that is for South Africa. We haven't touched South Africa as yet. So as you can see, this question critically assess the factors which contribution. What factors led to the rise of Hitler? How Hitler became a leader? We would have looked at the role of Hitler and how Hitler, what were the things going on? What were the effects on Germany as a result of what were the effects of Germany as a result of the Treaty of Versailles that created Hitler into the person he is? You need 5 factors. 5 factors, right? So those are pretty good questions. We would have covered them in class either through group presentation or through essays, right? Which question is this? We don't do Mandela's yet, and we don't do South Africa. We don't do reparation. Wow, this looks like a nice question. Let us look at the past papers. All right, so McCoy, just Savannah. Savannah is here, or Gabriel. Read these past papers for me, please. Gabriel Davis is sleeping.
Yes, sir. Here.
You don't read the question. Read the question for me, please.
Which one, sir?
We are looking at both questions. So this is the document base. So read the document base and then you read the essay.
Okay, with reference to document 1, outline 3 reasons why the peasants in Russia would want this cursed war to finally end.
All
the
right. Next.
With reference to document 1, explain 3 ways other than peasant discontent in which World War I led to the outbreak of the Russian Revolution in 1917. With reference to document 2, explain the reasons for the successful overthrow of the Kerensky government. With reference to document 2, explain 1 reason for the outbreak of the Civil War in Russia, 1918 to 1921, and 2 ways in which Lenin's promise of peace, land, and bread impacted by both civil war and the adoption of the war of communism.
Very good.
I examine the
One second for me, Gabriel. You can realize that these questions are really looking at you're looking at the Russian Rev. 3 reasons why the peasants in Russia would want this cursed war to finally end. So in other words, you're looking at the effects of World War I on the peasants. All right? And how it would affect the peasants in Russia negatively, that they really wanted the war to end. Then you have explained 3 ways other than peasant discontent in which World War I led to the outbreak of the Russian Rev. Other than the peasant discontent, what else led to the causes or the reasons or the factors that influence the people in Russia to riot? All right, explain 3 reasons for the successful overthrow of the currency government. Anybody remember who was currency? Who was currency? And which
Prime
government?
Minister of Russia, Germany.
Germany? You
Russia.
sure?
Russia.
You're
Russia.
supposed
Sir, was he the one who headed the provisional government?
Yes, so he was the one who led to the provisional government. So what led to and who overthrew his government?
The Bolsheviks.
The Bolsheviks, right. So basically this is asking you, what are the causes of the Bolsheviks revolution, right? The causes. Lenin was the head of the Bolsheviks and he took over. So what happened? Because the currency government was in charge. It was a provisional government that was taken out of office by Lenin. And remember, currency would have taken out the Tsar from office in the February Revolution. And by the October Revolution, they got rid of currency. Continue, Gabriel. Oh, wait, sorry, Gabriel, you would have read this already. So it referenced the document to explain one reason for the outbreak of the Civil War in Russia. Effects. This question is looking at the effects of the Russian Revolution. And one of the major effects is that there was a civil war in Russia. And we would have looked at that Russia war. We would have looked at the Civil War. Who were the persons fighting and what were they fighting for? Question 4, explain the view that the outbreak of the war in Europe in 1939 can be blamed mainly on the aggressive ambition of Adolf Hitler. What is this question asking you? Williams, what is this question asking you? Williams, you're here?
Sir?
I'm asking you, read question 4 and tell me what the question is asking you to do.
Oh, all right. So it's asking you to it's asking you to explain if you agree or disagree that the outbreak of war in Europe in 1939, if it's mainly Adolf Hitler's fault.
All right. So is it World War I, World War II, or Russian Rev?
World War II.
All right. Good, good. So that's 2017. All right. Let us look at 2016 paper. '16 paper look nice. Williams, read the questions for me from 2016. But wait, 2016 paper look like 2016 and 2021 is similar. Wait, 2016 is both World War I and World War II. They put both documents together, but go ahead for me, Williams. Read it for me.
With reference to document 1, explain 2 reasons for the outbreak of war following the June 28, 1914 assassination of Franz Ferdinand and his wife. With reference to document 2, explain 3 ways in which Georges Clemenceau's contribution to the Versailles Treaty might have set the stage for the outbreak of World War II. With reference to document 3, state 2 ways in which British policies contributed to the outbreak of war in 1939. And with reference to documents 1, 2, and 3, explain the role of treaties in the outbreak of World Wars I and II.
Very good. So you see these questions? Nice questions. All right, question 8, read question 8 for me.
Discuss the consequences of the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 for Russian society.
All right, good. So this is basically asking you to look at the consequences, the effects of the Bolshevik Revolution on Russia. We already looked at this one already, question 9. I think we can finish there for today. You have all the past papers. So we went through from 2016 to 2021 for most of, well, for Russian Rev, World War I, World War II. And then we would have gone through all of World War I. I remember I'd gone through all of World War I, both the document and both the essays. 2015 or 2005 to 2021, we went through all the questions on India. Therefore, ladies, I wish you all the best for your exams coming up, every single subject. And I'm looking forward to marking the papers over the break. Ladies, we're not going to meet tomorrow. So tomorrow is the day when I'm giving you to meet in your groups to study. If you want to meet in your group, you want to meet by yourself, and the same for Friday. That is it for this term. And I wish you, for those of you who celebrate Christmas, a Merry Christmas. For those of us who celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah when it comes, which is next week, the 28th. And for those of us who don't celebrate anything at all, enjoy the holiday. Happy holiday. Ladies, it was a pleasure teaching you for the term, and I look forward to continue teaching you in the new year.
Sir, just a quick question before you go. Are we getting Indian independence on the exam as well, up to Indian independence?
Somebody answer the question for me, please.
Yes.
Thanks.
So section A is World War I and Russian Rev. B is World War II. C is India. A, World War One and Russian Rev. Section B is going to be on World War II, and section C is going to be on India. For each section, you have one document-based question and you have one essay question.
Wait, so sir, for the India question, you're going to create a document-based question?
There's a document, you don't, all you know is that for each section, there's a document-based question, and each section, so obviously if India is there, there will be a document on India.
Okay.
The only thing is section A, you don't know for section A whether the document is going to be Russian Rev or the document is going to be World War I, or you don't know if the question, the essay is going to be on both World War I and Russian Rev. I don't know if the document is going to be mixed between World War I and World War. So A, you don't know how it is going to look. But B and C, you know that you're getting one document on World War II and an essay. C, one document on India and one essay. Ladies, I'm looking forward to mark the essays and the document. And remember your multiple choice, 45 multiple choice. I believe you're going to get 15 questions, 15 from each of the different sections, if I'm correct. But ladies, you're going to do well. See you all in the new year. If you have any question, any comments, any query, you just send me an email or WhatsApp message. I will try to respond. Adios,
Okay,
ladies.
sir. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Enjoy the holiday. Remember, eat some cake and sorrel. Have fun.
You too, sir. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.